Country music is turning on one of its biggest stars. And nobody saw it coming. Jelly Roll just dropped a warning that felt like it was aimed at someone specific. Lainey Wilson keeps repeating the same message over and over like she's trying to tell us something without saying names out loud. And then there's Blake Shelton, standing on red carpets that have nothing to do with Nashville, smiling a smile that don't look quite the same anymore. Fans are noticing. Nashville is whispering, and two of country music's most authentic voices keep talking about staying rooted and not losing yourself to fame. Coincidence? Maybe. But watch the next 10 minutes and tell me you don't see exactly what they're pointing at. Something shifted. And by the end of this video, you're gonna feel it too.
Somebody save me.
Prison cells that felt like coffins closing in on him. Addiction wrapping around his throat like it wanted to squeeze the life right out. Nearly losing everything, including his own sense of who he even was anymore, and now here he is, standing on stages in front of millions of people trying to warn them about the exact thing that almost destroyed him completely. Fame. The spotlight. All that stuff that looks so shiny from the outside but can eat you alive from the inside if you're not careful. He looks into cameras with those tired, knowing eyes and says stuff like, "Stay rooted," or "Fame will test you," or "Don't lose yourself out here." And every single time he says it, there's this heaviness behind the words, this weight you can feel in your chest. Not some theory he read in a self-help book, not something he heard on a podcast one time. Pure experience carved straight from rock bottom. Now think about who else might be listening to those words floating through Nashville right now. Blake Shelton was never just another country star collecting trophies and radio plays. He was Oklahoma grit, packed into worn-out cowboy boots and sealed with red dirt that never quite washed off. Mud on jeans that stayed there like a badge of honor. Loud laughter that filled up a barn before it ever learned how to fill an arena. The kind of guy who felt more at home in a pickup truck bed watching stars than sitting in some fancy penthouse watching his own reflection. Man, that line used to paint pictures in your head, didn't it? Dust and sweat and real American soil under your boots. Dirt roads twisting through the middle of nowhere leading to places that smelled like home and felt like belonging. And fans believed every word because Blake lived it with his whole entire chest. He talked about his ranch like it was sacred ground. Joked about fishing and hunting like they were religious practices passed down through generations. But lately something feels different. Not wrong exactly. Just different in a way that's hard to put your finger on, but easy to sense if you're paying attention. One foot planted on the ranch where he learned to be himself. One foot balanced on the red carpet where everybody's watching and judging. And that split is starting to show in ways that are getting harder to ignore even if you want to. Now listen, I gotta be clear about something here. This ain't about blame or pointing fingers at anybody. Nobody's accusing Blake of some scandal or secret or whatever. There's no drama hiding in shadows waiting to explode. This is about something softer than that. And honestly, something heavier than any headline could ever capture properly. Identity. Who you are versus who you're becoming. And whether those two people still recognize each other anymore. Jelly Roll built his whole second chance on a foundation of authenticity so thick nothing can crack it. He talks openly about almost losing himself in all the chaos. About staring in bathroom mirrors at 3 in the morning and not recognizing the guy looking back at him. He says fame can polish you so smooth that you forget the scratches and scars that made you real in the first place.
I'm just a long-haired son of a sinner.
That rawness right there is exactly why people trust him with their attention and their hearts. He don't hide his past in some locked drawer hoping nobody finds the key. He wears it like armor, and when he talks about staying grounded, it ain't some gentle suggestion from a comfortable place. It's a survival manual written in blood and tears and second chances he probably didn't deserve but got anyway. Lainey Wilson operates from the same playbook but with her own handwriting all over the pages. She didn't just build a brand to sell records and merch, she built a fortress around her roots so strong that no amount of fame could ever tear it down. Bell bottoms became her signature look. That Louisiana drawl she refuses to soften for anybody no matter how fancy the room. Stories about front porch nights and small-town loyalty that feel like coming home. Every interview she gives feels like a family reunion where everybody actually likes each other for real. Every song she sings smells like wildflowers growing beside dirt roads leading nowhere important but everywhere that matters. She doubles down on that image every chance she gets because it ain't even an image. It's just who she is underneath everything.
I got a heart like a truck. It's been
dented from hard miles on rough roads, scratched up from close calls that almost took her out, still running strong every single morning without complaining about it. Lainey don't pretend to be polished perfection wrapped in designer packaging. She celebrates the damage because the damage is what made her real enough to connect. Now compare that energy to what we've been seeing from Blake lately. The old interviews are still floating around on YouTube, like time capsules from another era. You can find him if you look. Blake leaning back in his chair like he owns the whole room and don't care if anybody knows it. Laughing so hard at his own jokes that tears start forming. Making comments that would make a PR team sweat through their expensive shirts. Zero filter between brain and mouth. Zero calculation about consequences. Just pure uncut Oklahoma chaos. Those clips feel like artifacts from another version of Blake now. Because the new Blake operates different. The laugh is still there, but it sounds measured. Contained within acceptable boundaries, the jokes still land, but they land softer with padding around the edges. The sharp corner's been rounded smooth by something you can't quite see. He seems aware of the room in a way he never used to be. Aware of cameras, aware of headlines waiting to be written, aware of how things might look tomorrow morning. Is that growth? Maybe. Is that distance? Also maybe.
Be my glass of wine, I'll be your shot of whiskey.
It felt effortless, like he wrote it sitting on a tailgate drinking something cold. Playful like an afternoon with nowhere to be. Unguarded like a conversation between old friends. Blake sounded like a man completely comfortable in his own boots, knowing exactly who he was. Now picture him standing next to Gwen Stefani on a red carpet, flashing brighter than any country stage ever did, two worlds colliding in front of photographers who don't care about authenticity. Two identities merging into something new. Love changes you. That ain't a scandal or something to apologize for. That's just life doing what life does to all of us eventually. But sometimes when love pulls you forward into new chapters, your past feels farther behind than you expected. Sometimes the distance between who you were and who you're becoming stretches so wide that other people notice before you do. Jelly Roll seems to understand this tension better than most because he's lived both sides of it. He's watched people climb toward success and drift away from themselves in the process. He keeps dropping these quiet warnings into interviews, like breadcrumbs leading somewhere important. Stay real. Stay rooted. Don't let them edit who you are. When he says fame don't care about your soul, the words stick to your ribs like a meal you can't forget. Because it sounds like experience talking directly from the source. Like something he learned the hardest possible way. Lainey's fans cheer like they're at a revival when she talks about driving hours just to sit on her mama's porch. They celebrate staying small town simple even when the world keeps trying to make you big and complicated. And subconsciously, maybe without even meaning to, they compare. They look at Lainey staying rooted like a tree that refuses to be moved. They look at Jelly Roll staying raw like a wound that never fully healed on purpose. And they look at Blake standing on carpets that glow brighter than stadium lights. Is Blake still that guy who'd rather fish in silence than pose for cameras? Or has the spotlight reshaped him in ways even he don't fully see yet? There's a tension in his recent interviews if you watch close enough. Subtle. Not dramatic, but definitely present. A carefulness in choosing words, a diplomacy that wasn't his style back in the day. He used to poke fun without hesitation. Now the edges been rounded smooth. Is that maturity? Protection? Pressure from somewhere we can't see?
You really love a woman, you don't let her go.
Lainey wrote that about substance over style, about what actually matters when you strip away all the decoration. Her whole career stands as proof she means every syllable. Depth over polish, truth over packaging. Country music guards authenticity like dragons guard gold in fairy tales. It don't care how big your streaming numbers get. Don't care how many awards line your shelves. It cares if you still feel like the same person who started this journey with nothing but a guitar and a dream. Nobody's saying Blake is lost forever. Nobody's calling him fake or a sellout. But there's this feeling spreading through the community, hard to describe with words, easy to sense if you're paying attention. The old Blake, that unfiltered barn laughing dust on jeans version, he feels softer around the edges now. Less dominant, less loud in the way that used to make him impossible to ignore. Maybe that's just time doing what time does to everybody. Maybe that's marriage and responsibility. Maybe it's Hollywood air mixing with Oklahoma wind until you can't taste either one. But if you've watched Blake for years, you can feel the shift happening right in front of you. Jelly Roll points at the mirror asking if you still recognize yourself. Lainey points at home asking if you remember where you started. And fans point at Blake with something between concern and curiosity and love that don't know where to land. Not accusing him of anything specific, just wondering about the man behind the smile they used to know so well. And that wondering is getting louder every single day. Part 2. So here's the question that keeps bouncing around Nashville and everywhere country music goes. Is Blake Shelton choosing this new version of himself on purpose? Or is it kind of choosing him without asking permission first? Because here's the thing about fame that nobody tells you up front. It don't just lift you up to some beautiful view where everything looks better, it edits you in small ways you don't even notice happening until somebody else points it out with worry in their voice. It smooths your rough edges until they disappear completely, polishes your words until they shine a little too bright, teaches you which jokes are safe and which ones might cost you something valuable down the road. And sometimes you wake up one random morning and realize all that editing happened so gradually, you never felt the scissors cutting pieces away.
To expect a savior, oh, if I...
This capital sang those words at the CMAs, the whole crowd went dead silent like they were in church. Because everybody understood he wasn't performing a song for entertainment value. He was confessing a truth most people hide behind Sunday smiles and carefully curated social media posts. That kind of honesty costs something real. Requires vulnerability that fame usually trains right out of people over time, and it makes you wonder genuinely. When's the last time Blake said something that raw, that unguarded, that made publicists somewhere start sweating? And that absence says something important, even if we can't define exactly what yet. But look, we gotta be fair here because fairness matters when we're talking about real people with real feelings who might actually see this someday. Blake Shelton gave country music decades of himself, decades of hits that defined whole generations of fans and their best memories. Decades of personality that made the voice actually worth watching for people who didn't even listen to country otherwise. He earned every bit of success sitting in his life right now. Through talent and work and persistence when things got hard, the question ain't whether he deserves what he built. The question is whether building it changed him in ways that can't be rebuilt or returned to. He sang that duet with Gwen, and you could hear something genuine underneath all the production. Two people who found each other in the rubble of their previous lives and decided to build something new together from scratch. That's beautiful in ways that deserve respect and admiration. That's exactly the kind of love songs get written about for good, honest reasons. But here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Love that takes you somewhere new also takes you away from somewhere old. That ain't criticism. That's just physics working the way physics works. You can't stand in two places at the same time no matter how hard you try or how much you want both worlds at once. And standing with Gwen means standing in rooms that don't smell like Oklahoma red dirt. Think about the geography of Blake's life right now and let it really settle in your mind. California properties with ocean views stretching forever. Hollywood schedules packed with obligations that got nothing to do with Nashville. Events where the dress code definitely don't include anything with a Carhartt label or mud stains on it. None of that is wrong or shameful. People are allowed to grow and expand beyond where they started. That's literally what success looks like for most folks. But geography shapes who we become, more than we like admitting. The places where we spend our time seep into our identity slowly. And if you spend enough time in places that feel nothing like where you came from, that starting place becomes a memory you visit instead of a home you actually live inside. Lainey Wilson understands this danger, which is why she guards against it so hard. She talks about purposefully driving back to Louisiana even when her schedule screams she can't afford the time. Talks about sitting on porches eating food that tastes like childhood. These ain't nostalgic sentiments for her, they're survival strategy against losing herself in all this. Nothing could drag her away from who she fundamentally is at her core. Not fame with all its temptations. Not money with all its comforts. Not any seduction that comes with sudden success knocking at your door. Can Blake say the same thing today and make people believe it like they used to believe everything he said? That question just hangs there like smoke after a fire burns something important. Nobody wants to ask it directly because asking feels kinda disloyal to someone they still care about. But the question exists whether we speak it out loud or pretend it ain't there. Jelly Roll approaches this whole topic with the authority of someone who nearly died from losing himself. When he talks about authenticity, it sounds like a doctor describing symptoms of a disease he barely survived. Stay away from this poison. I know exactly what it does. I almost didn't make it back. His warnings feel like prescriptions, not observations. He ain't commenting from comfortable sidelines. He's grabbing people by shoulders, shaking them hard before they make the exact mistakes he made.
I'm not okay, but it's all gonna be all.
The power of that confession is just simple honesty without any decoration. No pretending everything's fine and polished up nice. No performance of having it all figured out. Just honest admission that struggle continues even after success arrives and checks clear in your account. Does Blake ever feel like he's not okay somewhere deep inside? Does he look at his packed calendar and wonder how he ended up so far from fishing holes and ranch fences? Does he hear his older songs on the radio and remember the guy who wrote them with nothing but raw feeling? We'll probably never know, because that level of vulnerability don't survive in polished Hollywood air. gets edited out before anybody can see it. But country fans remember what unedited Blake looked like? They got receipts saved on their phones, and comparing then to now creates a feeling that don't need words to communicate. Something shifted. Something important. Now let's talk about what Jelly Roll and Lainey might actually be doing with all this consistent messaging. Because there's something interesting happening beneath the surface here that deserves attention. When two artists who represent authentic country values keep hammering the same themes over and over in interview after interview, it starts feeling less like coincidence. More like intentional positioning on some kind of battlefield, like they're drawing a line in the red dirt and standing on one side of it for everybody to see clearly.
She left without leaving a number.
A song about someone desperately trying to come back home after leaving everything behind. About hoping the door's still open after being gone too long to expect forgiveness. There's almost poetry in how that old song connects to current conversations about Blake and his country roots. Is the door still open for him? Can you really come back after being gone long enough that people started wondering if you were ever returning? Jelly Roll and Lainey seem to answer that question for themselves before it even gets asked. They're staying so close to home the question never needs asking. Making their roots so visible nobody could ever wonder where they stand. And by doing exactly that, they create contrast without saying anything negative about Blake directly. Contrast speaks louder than direct criticism ever could. When Lainey wears bell-bottoms to award shows where everybody else chose designer gowns, she's making a statement. When Jelly Roll tears up talking about his wife saving his life, she's making a statement. When both keep centering narratives around staying real, they're saying something about what country music should protect.
But we were learning on the sweet buzz.
That nostalgic sweetness running through her music connects to her whole message about holding on to where you came from. The sounds and words and visuals all align into something believable without trying too hard. Does Blake's current image align that cleanly anymore? Or are there visible gaps now between the Oklahoma narrative he tells and the Hollywood reality he lives every day? Fans ain't stupid. They see mansions in magazines, celebrity friends at parties, red carpets with nothing to do with country music awards, and they adjust their perception accordingly even if they still love the man underneath the new shiny layers. The adjustment ain't rejection, it's recalibration. And recalibration can feel exactly like loss even when nothing technically broke. Here's what makes this so deeply human and hard to judge. Blake ain't a villain in this story. He's just a person whose life expanded faster and bigger than most lives ever do. He fell in love with someone wonderful from a different world, accepted opportunities that took him unfamiliar places, grew and changed like growth and change demand from everybody. None of that is wrong, but country music holds its own to a different standard, expects you to stay recognizable no matter how successful you get, expects your boots to still fit the same feet that first walked into Nashville with nothing but dreams. When Jelly Roll and Lainey keep delivering that standard, through actions and words, the comparison becomes unavoidable. Not because they're attacking Blake, because they're reminding everybody what the standard looks like when you actually maintain it. Thank you for telling me that this was pretty fun. Friend Shares is now again somebody who spends a couple of money in the community past. There's something powerful about an artist admitting he almost lost everything and chose to rebuild piece by piece. Creates credibility that can't be manufactured through PR. Creates trust that polished interviews can't replicate. And it makes you wonder about artists who seem too polished now, whose edges been filed smooth, whose authenticity feels more like fading memory than current reality. Is Blake still the guy who came up through small-town bars and real struggle? Or has he been turned into something shinier and less recognizable than before? Only Blake knows the real answer buried inside somewhere. Maybe even he ain't sure anymore after all these years of change. The scary thing about identity is how quietly it shifts with that announcement. You don't notice changes happening daily because they're too small. You wake up putting on whatever's closest. Say yes to exciting opportunities without thinking about consequences. Spend time with people in your new world while the old world fades. Slowly you become someone different, not worse or better necessarily. Just different. But country fans fell in love with a specific Blake years ago. When that version gets harder to find under all the polish, the love don't disappear. It just gets complicated in ways hard to explain. He sang that years ago and it felt like testimony from someone who understood blessing and struggle equally. Now hearing it, you wonder which ups and downs he was imagining then, whether his current life looks anything like what he pictured. So where does all this leave us? Where does it leave Blake caught between worlds? Where does it leave fans who watched every phase with loyalty and care? It leaves us with questions nobody can answer completely. Watching Jelly Roll and Lainey demonstrate what staying rooted actually looks like, wondering if Blake sees the contrast or stopped looking. Maybe he sees it and don't care because he's genuinely happy where he landed. Maybe he sees it and it bothers him in quiet moments he'd never share. Maybe he don't notice at all because the distance grew so gradually it feels normal now. Whatever the truth is, country music's paying attention. Fans are watching with eyes wide open, whispers getting louder even if nobody's shouting yet. The question ain't whether Blake changed over the years. Everybody changes. That's just life. The question is whether he still hears Oklahoma in his own heartbeat when everything gets quiet. Whether that heartbeat sounds the same to fans who learned its rhythm decades ago, only time answers that fully. But for now, the wondering keeps spreading. And sometimes wondering asked with love hits louder than any accusation shouted in anger ever could.